it must have been rough to not be able to talk about the show as it was airing. Did you guys get together and watch it like with some of the cast or do something on your own?
Ugh, I mean, it's so upsetting that we all live in different areas of the world. I mean, Miles and me, we're in LA. Anna, Will, New York. Zach is in England. Like we're all over the place. But we have our group chat goes crazy. So anytime we're watching a new episode, we're just spamming each other like, oh my God, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we could have watched together, but it's so difficult to find a way to fly and all be in the same place. But I'm incredibly grateful that with the strike now, we even get to be together now and do some press.
Yeah. Now, how familiar were you guys with the original books before, or even the old show before hopping onto this?
Sure. We both grew up reading the books. I loved the books. I read all of them in my elementary school. But I had seen some of the series, the original 90s version, but I remember, and I might get flack for this, but I remember as a child being like, this isn't scary enough. Like it was scary for our time, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, and the books are disturbing, but what I think is so fun about this series now is that we have the full capability of our technology and kind of really getting to explore the special effects of monsters and curses and everything like that.
I read them growing up, and again, I the show wasn't as big of a part of my life, but the books, that was the entry to horror. And I think it was for most kids reading it. It's like the first kind of scary book you can read by yourself, and for me, it felt like reading it felt kind of like a big secret. I was like, oh, I get to read something kind of scary. Like I guess I'm an adult now.
Now, for both of you, what was the moment where you both truly connected with your characters and you knew you were on the same exact page?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah. I think for me, luckily, when I first read the script and the sides for the audition, it's kind of a rare thing to have this, but I read it and I kind of knew exactly who she was. I just kind of saw it and I heard it, like I kind of heard her voice. I knew, which is very exciting. And she does feel fairly similar to me in a lot of ways. Um, but I do think there's something about in episode 5, Reader Beware, um, when Margot and Lucas are walking to James' house, and she's just kind of talking about everything she's going through with her mom, and she's also found out that her father is not with her mom anymore and is with Nora, and her just kind of piecing through that information and kind of venting, getting it out, and feeling all the feelings of anger, but also and confusion and blaming herself, but then also being kind of picked up by this person being like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be sad and it's okay to feel all these feelings. It just felt so human and something that I think we all go through, and that felt very real for me.
The moment where I definitely felt like Isabel and I merged was popping the first dupe. Shooting and also reading it, I was like, yeah, I get this and this makes sense. Um, it's the Gryffindor in her. It just clicked in my.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask, what is that green goop that you were covered in most of what was it, episode 3? When you're
Yes,
yeah.
practically, like
Yeah.
in real, it is essentially, so the makeup department actually didn't create this goop. The dupe soup was made by FX, and it is essentially like, do you know the putty you make in school?
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that, but I think it has Isa, help me. It's like a syrup of some
More
sort
like
that makes
glycerin-y type.
it glycerin,
Yeah.
and it's very very thick and sticky, and they ended up fixing it, thank the Lord. But like the first time that I did it, the first layer of my skin completely off. Like getting it off was just like when you have a really bad sunburn and you can just peel the flake. It was horrible, but looked great, super fun. And yeah, it's just like literal Nickelodeon slime, like what I imagine that is.
Issa, you were the only one of the main cast to basically not experience a classic Goosebumps narrative. You got your haunted scrapbook adventure, but if you were to choose kind of a Goosebumps tale that you think would fit her journey the best or the most.
It's really interesting. I don't know. There's something, because I will say I haven't read all of the books, because I read more of the like first kind of initial classics and then kind of fell off as I grew up. So I don't know all of them. I don't know if these are storylines, but I assume they are. I just, in my heart, I'm like, Margot needs to become some sort of like witch or something, or some sort of like, or even like a vampire, or I mean, honestly, werewolf at a fever swamp. That's another one. But honestly, I feel like that story belongs to someone else. But I really want Margot to be like drunk with power. I feel like there's something there. I don't know if that's like a book, because I haven't read all of them, the more recent ones, but something where there's a bit of a transformation in character, not so much in appearance. I would also love an appearance change too, but there's something about someone, and I think it explores it so well in this show. We're all human, and we can all think we're good people, but then we make a decision that is maybe out of good, out of love, but it turns bad or even evil. And I feel like that is such a good storyline that we kind of keep throughout the show. And I would love for Margot to really like experience the fallout of that.
So then my spoiler question is for you, is you read some words out of a forbidden little book there.
I did.
How do you think that's going to play out for everyone?
I mean, has it ever worked out well? Russ, has it? No, I think it's again, like we already kind of touched on, it's obviously not a great idea. I think objectively not a great idea to read out of a like haunted book that an evil man has been using to try and end the world, basically. But again, it's out of something in her that's out of the good in her, but also out of selfishness. And we can all relate to that. We've all had moments where we've given in to something that we want so bad, even if, and just forget all the consequences and do that. It really opens up a can of worms. But I think what's also very cool about the storyline with Kondu and wanting to release these horrors, that leaves it open for all the however many books, Goosebumps books there are now. Like you can unleash so many demons just from this series. So I think it just really leaves it open for a lot of fun and scary, spooky stuff.
And now, we mentioned, the books, the original books for season 2. Are there any in particular that you'd like to see translated onto screen?
Mine would be Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Yeah. Like someone asked me that in another interview, and I think there is such an opportunity, put me in the writer's room. If you did, I would say please let us do junior year summer, and let me like just look at a summer camp or a lake and a dock, a forest. We had such an immense privilege being in the most beautiful place in the world. We shot in Vancouver. And I mean, the nature is incomparable. You will never find locations like that anywhere else. It is just simply insane. I would love to do books that involve more practical monsters as well. Yeah. And not just, humans and curses, but werewolves, vampires, creatures. I love practical makeup. So I would love to CGI and do that too.
Now, speaking of practical monsters, obviously Slappy played a big role in the show. And while you guys didn't seem to get many scenes with the actual dummy, what was it like in those brief days that you did?
It's such a big process of because there's so much like logistically that goes into that, because obviously you have the dummy, and then you have someone off screen moving the dummy, someone off screen speaking the words. And I think at the time we didn't even know who Kondu was yet, and that he wasn't even cast, and so we didn't even know what he sounded like. We were just kind of going blind with it at that point. But it's a freaky looking doll. Like, it's pretty messed up. Like, the first time I walked into the makeup trailer, and I just like saw his head just sitting on like a stick, and I was just like, oh god, get me out of here. It's disturbing. And so to see it, like especially in episode 8 when we're on the cliff, like trying to convince Harold Biddle to not hurt Isaiah, and you have you have Slappy there. The person puppeteering was hidden behind a rock, so you are fully looking at this puppet moving on its own, and that in itself is just so crazy, because it feels like you are in that horror movie. You are in a Chucky, anything like that. But obviously, it's a classic character like Slappy, so it was very cool because it felt very real.
Yeah,
yeah. The worst part is his size. I'm not freaked out by dolls. I'm not freaked out by dolls. Like, throw Chucky at me, like the Annabelle girl, sure. But the scary part about Slappy is that he's a small person. He so he is not, it doesn't look like a toy to me. When you see the doll in person, it looks like someone sitting up. And that is the creepiest part, is that you are just engaging with another small human who just is horribly evil. And that is scary to me than if he looked just disgusting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His legs freaked me out.
His legs. His little legs. His legs were always crossed for us like this. It was
I was like,
horrible. And they're tiny. They're like, it's like Farquaad, but worse.
Oh, all right. Well, before I head off, one quick question for you guys. What is a favorite horror movie of yours that you would recommend people that like Goosebumps?
I don't like scary movies.
That's fair. It's a fair answer.
Easter Nor.
I guess you need to watch Chucky now.
No. Okay.
I guess you got to watch Chucky now.
No, well, guess what? My brother is in the Sci-Fi USA Chucky series, and I could only watch sections of it. I just scrubbed through and saw 10 of those episodes, and I was like, I can't. After that, it's too much.
Oh my gosh. I am a psychological thriller fiend. I love less of like obviously, you know, The Shining, things like that, classic Silence of the Lambs. But personally, I love Split. I love just anything. I even love old school weird sci-fi horror like Hellboy. I love things like Barbarian, shout out Justin Long, even Tusk, just really disturbing, scary things. This whole Saw franchise I'm obsessed with. So
I love Saw as well.
Yeah, I just love anything that really poses moral quandaries. But Split, I just go back to again and again. I think it's so good.